présentation, où il y avait, si vous voulez poser des questions, écrivez-le dans public chat.
Elle est pas sur la présentation, mais je pense que moi, l'oral, je proposais
Ouais,
les deux
ah si, c'est
options.
bon,
En fait.
j'ai trouvé, c'est bon. J'ai
Si
vu.
tu l'as?
Ouais.
Ah, ok.
Ouais, je vais préparer la petite présentation. Enfin, j'ai préparé les slides après. From few questions before starting a session. Copier, je vais recopier en bas. Hein. Ça, juste à faire espace. Copier.
Tu veux que je défile moi, Olivier, sur le début ou pas?
Bah, tu peux faire ça.
Non, mais vas-y, tu peux garder. De toute façon, je pense qu'il est
Bah,
10h, on va
tu peux
pouvoir
pas,
commencer.
avec je fais un partage d'écran, tu peux pas prendre la main, quoi.
Oui, non, t'as raison, je suis...
Bah, à moins que tu veuilles partager ton écran.
Non, vas-y, je t'en prie.
Parce que tu l'as aussi, enfin, ce truc-là, il est dans le dossier partagé.
Ouais, mais là, il est 10h, on va commencer comme ça, et puis on a une bonne synchro d'habitude.
Oui, moi, je me fais pas. Il y a Michel qui me parle sur Teams, en même temps, c'est relou.
Attends, elle est mise sur Teams, tu sais quoi, Non, dans le chat, si je te fais ça, c'est qu'il faut défiler.
Ça marche.
Ok, est-ce qu'on commence?
Ah, je les ai coupés. Attends, mince, j'ai pas copié-collé. Tease.
Charles, en fait, t'es le cousin de caméraman.
Attends, mon ordi est en train de commencer à ventiler.
C'est normal, Geoffrey, on revient du même cartel.
Ouais, je vois ça. Putain, Olivier.
Quoi? C'est bien le clavier. Mais... bah, je sais pas quelle heure on commence.
Vas-y, on va commencer.
De toute façon, on a le temps, hein. Je pense qu'on va pas tenir un quart d'heure avec les types du début.
Ouais, non, mais c'est pas grave. Après, il y a un petit peu de gens arrivés maintenant, on peut attendre un peu.
Il y a quelqu'un qui touche la salle, Geoffrey.
Pardon?
Quelqu'un qui a touché la config de la salle.
Ah, oh, merde.
Ça commence pas à 10h15?
Si, les présentations commencent à 10h15, mais on est censé introduire la session vers 10h.
Ah d'accord, merci.
Problème. Olivier, t'as du son chez toi là?
Non. Enfin, je t'entends toi.
Il y a une sorte d'écho avec ton mic.
Bah, c'est pas moi. Hein.
Je vois que ta voix active. Ah, c'est là, bon. Ah si, ça vient de chez toi.
Mais comment c'est
Prends son
possible?
bain.
Ah ouais. Ah, ok. Ouais, si, il y a un bruit étrange qui vient de ton micro, Olivier.
C'est le ventilo, en fait.
Ouais, toi aussi. C'est la matinée des ventilos. On commence à introduire la session et puis après on sera pas mal, on attendra 10h15.
Ouais. Par contre, le ventilo, ça va être relou avec la presse d'Émilie.
On commence?
Ouais, je pense que vous pouvez.
Ok.
Ouais, on commence.
Ok. Hello everyone, can you hear me? Yeah? Okay, thanks guys. Please, can you press like something like F4? Just, yeah, okay, so you can hear me, fine. So hello and welcome to this session of CONVRGENCE. So my name is Jeffrey here. Yep. So I'm the guy here. Yes. And I am with Oliver today. We are the teachers of this session. So this session is dedicated to human-centered experiences. So first of all, before we introduce the papers and the authors, I would like to mention, some of the guidelines for the presentation this morning. Yeah, can you switch, Oliver, please? Yeah, next slide. Okay, so first of all, please, guys, keep your mic muted during the presentation. So on the bottom left of your screen, you have like the mic button. So please turn it off during the presentation. And during the question, so we will talk about this later, but during the question, please, can you switch on and off alternately with the presenter? It's important because we want to avoid any echo during the questions. Okay, so next slide. Yes, so that's it. So you can turn it off and on during the questions. And you have two options. If you have any question after the presentation, you can first ask your question in the chat box, bottom left of your screen. And you can use the option raise hand like this, okay? And please, when you raise your hand, just wait a few seconds, and we will say your name, okay? And as soon as we say your name, you can ask your question. Okay? So, and then don't forget to turn off the option like this. Okay. Oliver, thanks. Okay, so you can access the proceedings of the conference already on the website, so igvl.eu. So you have a PDF file, with all the proceedings, and some papers are also available separately on the website. So don't hesitate to go there and to download this an open access journal, so you can access all the proceedings. So here is the program of the conference this morning. So we have 4 papers. Okay, the first one concerns, or you can read the title, but virtual classrooms, quality of experience. So the presenter will be Alexis SOUCHET. He's here in the room, so he's ready for the presentation. We have a second paper entitled Effect of Physical Activity on VR Experience. Then we have the risk and benefits of AI for humans, and so the presenter won't be here today, so we have an audio file with the presentation, but you won't be able to ask questions concerning this paper, but feel free to contact the authors. And then we have shaken at third. So this is the last paper concerning Vibrotactile feedback in VR. And that's all for this morning. And yeah, it will be the end of the session after the 4 papers. Yep, can we have the next slide? Okay, so now we can wait a few minutes, okay, and we will begin the presentation at 10:15. If you have any question before, please feel free to ask me or Oliver. And Alexis, yep, if you want, you can put your slide here on the screen as soon as you're ready. Oh, and if you didn't try yesterday, you have like you have an icon on top of the screen. So if you want to zoom on the screen to avoid seeing all the other avatars in front of you, you can just press the icon here, the zoom on this screen. It's Inception again.
Okay, perception's down.
Fine. Fine. Okay, so let's wait 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay, I think I'm going to cut off my mic. That way you are not hearing my fan.
Oh, you can also use the one key on your keyboard, and it turns off and on the mic like a push to talk option.
All right, thanks.
Amen.
Do you have any issue with your mic? Hey, David. Okay. 2 minutes left, and we can begin the presentation. Oh yeah, Simon. We have a reminder from the chair of the conference. If you want to have a look at the posters on the wall, please feel free. So the session was yesterday, but you have all the poster of the conference on the left and the right sides. And yeah, 1 minute, and we can begin the presentation. Okay, so if you guys are ready, we can begin the presentation. And Alexis, it's your turn, so please feel free to present your paper and your work. And please keep your mic muted during the presentation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, good morning, and thank you to be here today for this presentation, which describes the evaluation of advancement, apparently. The evaluation of quality of experience of a VR platform in situ. The context here is learning. First, some context. This research project is called Virtual Classroom, and it has been funded and supported by BPI France. The general purpose was to create and deploy collaborative VR in 3 different learning situations. As you can see, we were 4 partners in this project: MANZALAB, which is the tech provider, and a polytechnic lab working on particle physics, a school of engineering in biology, and a consulting company. We aimed at evaluating VR deployment for learning through quality of experience, and we tried to understand the possible influence of HMD quality, learning material, and the impact of distance. If we take a look at previous works, an important body of research is available, especially since VR reappeared on the general market with a new Edmonton displays generation. Here we tested collaborative VR, which stands for joining a common space in the virtual environment to interact no matter where users' real physical space is. And here, however, collaborative VR is not the modality of VR deployment that aggregates the most contributions. Therefore, we will also talk about VR in general. Speaking of, previous literature indicate that VR is usually efficient for learning. And as for collaborative VR, previous works indicate that it focuses attention and connects learners to the learning materials. But VR for learning in general needs to be tested in situ, hence most researches are taking place in labs in highly controlled conditions. And quality of experience is traditionally measured to assess users' acceptance of a VR experience or deployment efficiency. Such evaluation relates on several dimensions, but here we focus on presence, flow, visual comfort, and user experience. Not that larger models exist, but we focus on those four aspects due to our constraints, which will be further developed in the material and method section. I will not introduce each concept. You have the paper for that, and we can talk about it later on the Q&A. Let's focus first on experimental results of presence while learning in VR. Well, what we see from previous works is that there is no consensus on whether presence is influencing learning in VR or not. Yet, a high presence is usually associated with a high quality of experience. Therefore, it is necessary to measure presence in different learning contexts to better understand its modulation and impact. Now let's talk about experimental results for flow while learning in VR. High flow is documented as a condition for high quality of experience. Flow is globally higher in VR than with other apparatuses, meaning PCs or tablets or websites, for instance. Therefore, it is necessary to measure flow in different learning contexts too, especially here for collaborative VR. All right, what about visual discomfort's experimental results in previous works? Well, one could expect that visual discomfort has a negative influence on learning, but we see that little experimental proofs support this hypothesis even when learning occurs in VR. Yet, it has a negative influence on quality of experience in general. Therefore, one way to reduce visual stress is not to display stereoscopy, but it hasn't been tested a lot in collaborative VR. Hence, this could reduce visual discomfort risks. And finally, we looked at general user experience results with VR. This parameter is used but mainly for interface validations. One of our issues here is to understand if HMD's quality has an influence on learning and on the general quality of experience. But previous works show that no difference between low-end and high-end HMDs. Therefore, general user experience needs to be addressed in collaborative VR for learning purposes in situ. As we have seen in previous works, most of them were not evaluated in situ, and collaborative VR needs more inputs. it led us to ask three research questions. The first one is quality of experience influenced by low-end and high-end H&D? The second one is quality of experience influenced by learning material? And the third one is quality of experience influenced by relative participant location? By relative participant location, we mean, are they in the same room or are they distant? The virtual classroom apparatus has been implemented in 3 different learning contexts in situ. These conditions highly influenced our ability to evaluate the quality of experience and the means we could use. Here are the material and methods. To measure quality of experience with collaborative VR, we used 4 questionnaires, which represents 45 items total. They cover presence, flow, visual discomfort, and user experience. Virtual classroom has been deployed within 4 groups corresponding to varying conditions. The first group was given a lecture about process engineering for bioindustry. 29 university students participated to the experiments and were split in small groups of 7 or 10 participants. The students were located in the same room and the lecture lasted about 20 minutes. It will be represented in yellow in the following slides. The second group was given a lecture about particle physics. 41 high school students participated to the experiment and were split in small groups of 7 to 10 participants too. The students were located in the same room and the lecture lasts about 20 minutes as well. It will be represented in orange in the following slides. The third group was given a lecture about human resources and management. 80 employees, managers mostly, participated in the experiment and were split in small groups of 10 to 20 participants. They were distant from each other and the lecture lasts about 1 hour. Of these 80 participants, 10 agreed to answer the questionnaire. The group will be represented in blue in the following slides. And we're still here. The fourth group consisted in the same 80 managers than the previous one in similar conditions, but the lecture lasted 2 hours. And of these 80 participants, 8 volunteered to answer the questionnaire. This group will be represented in gray in the following slides. So the first group used a Samsung Gear VR with a Samsung Galaxy 8. The learning material was consisting in slides and 2-day videos. The second group used an Oculus Go as well as the following ones, and the learning material was consisting in 3D objects and 360 contents like videos and images. And the third and the fourth group were using an Oculus Go as well. The learning material was consisting of slides and 2D images. Here is what group 1 condition looked like. They were standing in a VR room for the lecture. The avatars were photorealistic but did not look like users except for the lecturer. This group was consisting in 13 females and 15 males with a mean age of 21.9 years old. The condition used a low-end H&D and real lectures like learning material, slides, 2D videos. Here is how it looked like for group 2. They were standing in a VR room with the particle collider from CERN. Then on the collider with different size views and 360 images and videos of the collider. This group was consisting of 17 females, 24 males, and the mean age was 22.0 years old. For group 3 and 4, here is how it looks like for them. They were sitting around the table and the lecturer in front of them. And for group 3 was consisting of 6 females and 4 males with a mean age of 23.5 years old. And for group 4, 2 females and 6 males with a mean age of 23.8 years old. Now let's move to the results and discussion section. Each of our statistical tests have been performed with the Friedman tests. We are talking about presence. All items taken together, we don't have a statistically significant result. Presence pairwise tests show that group 1 is different from group 4 and group 3 is different from group 4. An interesting result is that between groups with IM HMD, the occurs go, we don't have a statistically significant difference between distant groups and the one physically in the same room, meaning that presence seemed independent of the location of participants. Now we look at presence results item by item. One result with our condition is that users' avatar doesn't influence self-presence no matter if they look like or not. Having their own avatar can be enough, even if they are not photorealistic based on their own image, which is in line with previous works. On some aspects, we can talk about that later if you want to. Group 1 is lower than group 3 on that matter. The items relating to body ownership indicate that a difference between those two groups. These differences are on body ownership. This is my body, this is my arm, are the kind of items that were asked. And if we take a look at social presence, specifically about the interaction with other people, we have also a difference between those two groups. This can be explained by the longer exposure by group 3, which leads to more time to experiment the virtual environment and interact with others, because group 3 was exposed for 1 hour while group 1 was exposed for 20 minutes. Here we look at flow results. All items taken together, there is a statistically significant difference between groups. This result is in line with previous works. The box plots show that you can see group 2 rated the higher flow. And if we take a look at details item by item, well, I'm not detailing everything, but let's just say that group 1 in yellow with a low-end HMD and learning material consisting in slides and 2D images is the group that usually has a lower flow on most items. And globally, like you might have seen the previous slides with the box plots, you can read that group 2 is the one with the higher flow and group 1 the one with the lowest flow. The third questionnaire was about visual discomfort. If visual discomfort is high, this is a negative, and this is negative for quality of experience. All items taken together for visual discomfort, we see a statistically significant difference between groups. This is in line with previous works. The box plots show that you can see group 2 rated the lower visual discomfort. And if we look at details, most items show that exposure time remains what influences the most visual discomfort. The higher exposure time, the higher discomfort. Group 3 in blue was a 1 hour exposure, and group 4 in gray was a 2 hour exposure. Yet HMD quality also seems to have an influence, as group 1 in yellow with the low-end HMD show a higher discomfort than group 2 with the high-end HMD. I'm quite fast. I hope you are following, but the last questionnaire was about general user experience. All items. Sorry? Oh, yeah, I'll keep going. This is globally in line with the results that we had about user experience. I will go faster because I don't have much time left. Most items about user experience questionnaire showed that Group 1 rated a lower experience than others. Some items show that Group 2 has a higher quality than Group 3 and 4. Therefore, we have the group with the low-end HMD and the learning material the closest to what you display in a regular classroom with a lower user experience, while the higher is with the high-end HMD with 3D and 360 contents. Okay, all those results must be considered in light of several limitations in our study. We were testing collaborative VR in situ. Usually, such studies are done in control lab environments. Therefore, here we couldn't randomize participants' assignation to each group. Those groups were quite different because conditions were varying more than what's usual in experiments. The comparison with previous works, which are usually solo VR experiences for learning, was hard. We did not test confounding variables that could help understand our results, such as the age, the previous VR experience. We do have the data though. Finally, you should consider that several statistically significant results were obtained with pairwise Friedman tests, which is pointed out in the literature as quite limited. And this leads us to a conclusion. Our results indicate that quality of experience is better with high-end HMD than low-end HMD. Quality of experience is higher when lectures, the learning instructions and material include 3D objects and 360 content. Quality of experience is mostly equivalent no matter if users are distant or in the same room, as our presence results indicate. What we will work on in the future, and you might want to work on it too, testing other HMDs and learning material in collaborative VR. We will include learning evaluation of participants, the variation of avatars and the level of interactions between users could be tested too, and of course monitoring learners' psychophysiological states. We talk about fatigue, stress, attention. Eye tracking appears to be a good lead for such measures. It ends the presentation. I would like to thank our partners during this project who also contributed to the article: Polytechnique with the Le Prince Ringer Lab, EBI, and Corn Ferry. You have our contacts here if you want to discuss further, and I think we have time for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexis. Guys, if you appreciate the presentation, please press F4 on your keyboard. I'm pretty sure that the speaker will appreciate that. Right, so we have time for questions. So we have already some questions in the chat. So let me tell you that remember you have two options. The very first one is to use the option raise your hand, and then we can say your name and you can ask your question, or you can post directly your question in the chat. So the first question from Florian. So thanks for your presentation. I don't understand why each group have different time exposition. Can you explain, please?
Yeah, they have different time exposition because the learning material and what they had to learn was quite different. The first group was about industrial process in bioindustry, and it was an engineering school, and the other one was an high school master class about particle physics, and the last one was about training managers in human resources. So the learning material and the aims of each lecture was quite different. That explains the difference in time exposition.
Fine. Then we have a question from a live question, vocal question from Johan.
Good morning. The distance learning, I get that the public don't understand. that have people in different locations, but they learn in the same group. How do you get to explain that to them that they go, aha, you understand?
I'm sorry, you're quite far from your mic. Could you repeat, please? Does it cut it off sometimes?
Yes, is it better?
Yeah, it's a bit better. Thank you.
Okay. With the distance learning, where you have students in different locations, but they meet the same virtual environment, I find it very difficult to explain to the public that is possible. How do you explain that to the public?
I'm sorry, but I don't know if I'm the only one, but John, we cannot hear you very clearly. So would you like please to write your question in the chat?
Yes, sorry, it's cutting off a lot while you're talking.
While you write your question, we can switch to the next one. So the next one is, can visual discomfort be influenced by the fact that people are wearing glasses versus not wearing glasses?
It's a tricky one. It might, depending of the physical properties of the HMD, the lenses, and also the glasses. So it might influence it, depending also if you can change the distance between the screen and your eyes, or just the interpupillar distance. It depends a lot based on the HMD model. So it might influence it, yes. And I'm not sure. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, please. Go on.
But I'm not sure about that. I didn't read anything specifically that is saying that if you're wearing glasses, it will make it worse.
Okay, so I'm sorry because I missed several questions before. So the second question was actually, let me check it. What's the difference between visual discomfort and cyber sickness?
It's not a real difference. Let's say if you are reading La Viola in 2000, for instance, he or she, I don't remember if it's a he, it's Frank, is explaining that cyber sickness is a general family for a lot of symptoms with VR, and visual fatigue is one of them, and visual discomfort is just the subjective experience of visual fatigue. So visual discomfort is a son or a sister of cyber sickness. And here we didn't measure cyber sickness directly because all our participants were sitting down. There were no movements in the virtual scenes, but that explains why we concentrated on visual discomfort rather than general cyber sickness.
Okay, fine, and we have time for more questions. So we have several, comments. You can read the chat, but then we have what was the kind of learning? What was the performance to reach at the end of the learning phase?
That's also the tricky part. Since we were in situ, we were assessing real learning sessions. Most of the time we didn't have enough time for having feedbacks on the learning objectives, and some of our partners were not especially assessing the learning part that was taking place in VR. It was part of a larger program, let's say. So we don't know exactly which were the objectives, but you have the other authors of the article that represents each partner, so they could talk about that more than me. But let's say that for the particle physics, the purpose was to make high school students understand what was particle physics, and it was kind of a seminary to make them understand physics and maybe want to work in physics. And for the bioengineering school, it was more about processing in general. What process should you apply, how you can check on the industrial process. And so the general learning purpose was that, and for the management session, it was about human resources, how to manage people in general. So that were the learning objectives, and most of them weren't assessed as we speak.
Okay, so two more questions. Are there also future research on figuring out the impact on people while with learning disabilities and if it helps?
Well, we do think about that. I'm talking on behalf of MANZALAB here. We do think about accessibility, so we are looking at it right now. So yeah, we would like to better know how to make sure that our products are accessible, and what to create in the virtual environment to make sure it is. So it might be part of a scientific work in the future. Yeah.
Fine, and so the last question of this talk, I will take the question of Johan. Give me just a second. Okay, so how do you explain to the public the concept of distant presence, but in the same virtual location? I find it very difficult to make them understand that this is in fact possible.
Well, good question. Well, I don't really explain it. I'm just well, Geoffrey here is the chairman, so maybe he could answer that question better than me about how you can explain to the general public what's presence. Usually, I'm talking about what Slater is talking about in his work. So basically, you have a strong belief that you are in the virtual environment, and usually what I'm doing and what we are doing when we're talking about that, we are just quoting a definition of it. If I'm taking back Slater's definition in 2009, I'm explaining that presence is the strong illusion of being in a place in spite of the sure knowledge that you are not there. So basically, I'm also talking about an illusion that all your perceptions, most of your sensitive abilities are transported in the VR. This is how I'm trying to explain it most of the time.
Well, thanks a lot to our speaker and for all your questions. Let's press F4 once again on your keyboard, guys, to thank our speaker.
Thanks very much.
So there are plenty of, a lot of questions in the chat, so please feel free to contact directly the speaker. And yeah, to answer the question concerning the proceedings, they are available on the igvr.eu website for free, so please download the proceedings if you want to read the paper. So let's move on to the next talk. The next talk concerns the effect of physical activity on VR experience, and let's welcome Azena Aksaim. I don't know if you're here.
Well, I will be presenting İlker BERKMAN, not Azena Aksaim, but she's also here. I'm now right behind
Yeah, fine. Can you please just come here next to the computer screen, and then you can...
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, let's go. Can you
okay.
just put your presentation on the main screen?
Okay, I will do that.
You should be able to do this because you're a moderator.
Okay. Yeah. What?
Oh,
no,
this is the igvr.eu website.
Wrong link, I copied, sorry.
But that's fine. So this is the website where you can download the proceedings.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I was just sending the hyperlink to someone on the chat, so I just forgot that I copied it. So
that's perfect. Thanks for sharing.
Okay. Okay. Lucky mistake. So is everything clear on the presentation screen? Do I need to adjust my... Okay, it fits on the screen, I guess.
So
very nice.
On my side, I have a white screen right now. Maybe we have to wait a few seconds.
Okay, right at the moment, I see it on the...
Do you guys see the presentation?
Works for me. You probably need to refresh your screen on your side.
Yeah.
There is a click
Use
on
the
the
arrow.
icon to refresh on the top right on the screen.
Well, if you guys see the presentation, I think we can begin. So, yep,
Does everybody see it? Does majority see it? So I cannot see it right at the moment. I was seeing it at the beginning, but okay, let me begin now. So our study is about the physical activity on the user experience in virtual reality, actually game user experience, a study conducted by me and Ms. Asena Aksayan. And well, that's a study on a head-mounted display-based virtual reality game, and we were trying to identify the effect of the body activities, physical movements on this gaming experience in the head-mounted display virtual reality game. So our focus was on presence as a part of the user experience, cyber sickness, game user experience, since that's a game study. If it was an educational study or something like that, maybe we will be measuring the educational...
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
There is no screen.
There's no screen?
No.
Okay, just a second.
Maybe you can just stop sharing and sharing on the time.
So. Just a second, please. Okay, let me share it again. Is it fine now?
Yes, we have the screen.
Screen is on. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thanks.
Just in case, guys, you can also copy the link directly in your web browser. So I will share the link in the chat.
I can do that for you. Here
So
it is.
if you experience any issue, please use your web browser to follow the presentation.
Okay, so you didn't miss a lot, actually. The slide was something like that. I was talking about what we have explored in terms of user experience in a virtual reality game. We checked out presence, cyber sickness, game user experience, and as a requirement of the study, since we are exploring the body activities, we checked out the physical activity enjoyment. So the studies related with the virtual reality and physical activity it's said that the physical VR has a high potential as a physical activity routine, and also many studies reveal that it provides a higher level of game user experience. Well, there are some studies explored by Applebaum and Ericsson. You can just check out their review that they explored the studies about the use of VR to improve the athlete's performance in terms of physical activity. And there are some embodiment-related studies which are saying that the sensory motor feedbacks affects the user experience in virtual reality. So, well, it's like that actually. In a non-virtual reality gaming application, the movement of the player is limited to the position of the screen. I don't say that they don't have to sit down and look at the screen, but they have to keep their position facing to the screen. But in VR, there is much more freedom for the user to turn around and to use their bodies as they can do in the real world. So another group of studies that including the physical activities, the locomotion studies, Bolesis provided a really nice review on them. And in these studies, he divided the locomotion technologies, techniques, let's say, into two. The physical and virtual locomotion. The virtual locomotion is the controller-based teleportation-like mechanisms, and the physicals are motion-based or room scale-based methods, like you see on the screen right at the moment, I guess. So those locomotion studies say that the walking leads to a higher sense of presence. It doesn't matter if it's walking in place or real walking, a room scale walking, it leads to a higher sense of presence. And the physical motion systems, physical locomotion systems provide better comfort in terms of cyber sickness and improves the user performance just in time or each achievement of the task. Users perform better, and there is this higher engagement and higher presence, sense of presence of the users. Many studies revealed that. And well, also Kilton et al. Says that the sense of location in virtual environment can be enhanced through vestibular and tactile information. So our own bodies gives us some feedback that we feel more present in the virtual environment. So what we did was, we had this game, the Dragon Ride VR game. We created this game with Unreal Engine, and so the game is that you can just see, you're just sitting on a dragon, on the neck of a dragon. So if you look back behind or forward or sideways, you can see its wings, its body, its tail, everything. And there is also a saddle on the dragon that you can see. So, but you cannot see your own representation of your own body. So there is no visual representation of yourself as an avatar. And the aim of the game was just ride this dragon, and it can throw some flames, and you just destroy these hot air balloons with the by throwing the flames on your dragon. And we made two versions. One version is this one with these HTC Vive controllers. When the users are playing this, they were also sitting on an exercise apparatus. It's a kind of swing, but it has some elastic straps attached to the ceiling, so you are just bouncing on the you are just bouncing while you are playing the game. And the other version uses a controller, a standard game controller, and we just didn't let the users to stand up or something. We just let them to sit on a regular office chair and play the game. Well, the controllers were programmed like this. In order to go up, you need to move the magic ones, the Vive controllers, above your head, above the headset actually. And if their position is below the headset, you go downwards. And if their position is not balanced, if one is up, one is down, it's like that, you just turn towards the direction that your controller is down, below the headset position. That is how the Dragon Ride is controlled. And well, in the game controller, it was mapped like that, using the joystick up, down, and turn left and right is programmed like this. So we had these 40 participants between 18 to 37 years old, and half of them were female. Majority of them had a little bit of VR experience with head-mounted displays. 5 times or less they have used those kind of devices and experienced those kind of environments, and 10 of them had no prior experience on VR. So in order to measure presence, we decided to use MacSPQ because it's a questionnaire, and in a recent study we have revealed that it is sensitive to different virtual environments explored with head-mounted displays. So we decided to use this for its sensitivity. However, we excluded 2 of its dimensions, the visual spatial imagery and domain-specific interest dimension, because they are trait-like construct. They are not evaluating the experience, but they are evaluating the user's attitudes toward virtual reality or the content of the virtual reality. And it's becoming a standard, I guess, that we have used to simulator sickness questionnaire as a measure of cyber sickness, which has 9 symptoms, and those 9 symptoms are evaluated as nausea, oculometer, and disorientation scores, as well as a total severity score. And in order to assess game user experience, we had the game user experience questionnaire by fun, but we also excluded 2 of its dimensions, the social connectivity and narratives dimensions, because our environment does not provide any social connectivity, and the narrative was not very clear, actually. Well, you are riding a dragon or something, but it's not very clear that why are you riding this dragon, who are you? So there's no backstory on the game, so we skipped this narratives dimension too. So we used the other dimensions. And finally, we had this physical activity enjoyment scale, PACES. We have seen that it's becoming popular in the gaming studies, exergaming studies, assessing the user's enjoyment of physical activity. It has items like that. It's a bipolar scale. As you see, all of our measures are subjective measures. We didn't have an objective measure except the user performance, the time on the task, the time that they have completed the game. So that's a within subjects design study. So all of our 40 participants played both of the games. They were randomly assigned to the either version. They start, one group started with one version, other half started with the other version. And they are asked to destroy all those zeppelins and balloons as soon as they could. So we just recorded the total time. It was also shown on the screen to the participants while they are playing. And then they rated their experience using the questionnaires. We let them have a break of 15 minutes, or if they ask it, we let them to have a break for a longer time. And then they played the other version and did the same rating thing again. So our results were, well, in terms of player performance, the joystick version was better. The seated, physically less active or let's say inactive joystick-based version was better. Users finished the game faster than the the hanged physically active version. So, however, we think that it's not due to the physical activity, because when we were observing our users, we have seen that they were not moving as much as we expected. They were just trying to keep their balance on this elastic step, swing-like mechanism, and they were trying to direct their dragons using the controllers. And for this reason, we think that the difference is based on the difficulties they have faced when they were trying to control the dragon. They were struggling with those magic ones. Actually, some of them told us that after the experience, they told us that we should change the mapping of these controls. Having this controller's upwards, downwards mapping should be opposite way. It should be something like, when you move your hands down, the dragon should be going up, and when you move your hands up, going downwards. That was something that we discussed before we implement the game, and we decided to keep it as direct as possible. But Well, that has been an issue with the users, with our players. Well, the results of the game user experience satisfaction questionnaire is also related with this finding, this issue of the controls, the usability, playability of the handed version, HTC Vive controlled version was scored with a lower score. It's 5.44, and the difference is significant. While on the other dimensions, there is not any significant difference, as you see the numbers here. However, the handed version, the physically more active version, has slightly higher scores on some dimensions like creative freedom and enjoyment on the game user experience satisfaction scale, the personal gratification, player engrossment. The player engrossment was lower, slightly lower, and the audio and visual aesthetics are almost, they provided on these two dimensions, there are these almost same scores because they were actually playing the same game. The environment was the same. And when it comes to the MAC-SPQ results, the self-location and possible action provided higher scores for the handed version, and as a result of this, involvement was higher. While the other scores are, as you see, quite close to each other. The suspension of disbelief is similar because they are playing the same game, the same reason. All the environment assets and the other things are same, and since the environment was the same number of balloons, they were on the same location, the spatial situation model is the same, and the attention allocation is not different. The interesting thing here is that the possible actions were also the same in the both games, so you can just go up, down, and throw flames to blow up those balloons. But the users thought that they can do more in the physically active version. Although they are limited to the same virtual actions, their physical activity lead them to think that they can do more things. They have more control in the virtual environment in the physically active version. Well, the cyber sickness scores were not in line with our expectations. We thought that the physically active version would lead to a lower cyber sickness level, but it was vice versa. The physically active version led to a higher level of cyber sickness, actually in terms of oculomotor symptoms. And this also affected the total score, but also it provided higher scores for the disorientation and nausea, although the difference was not significant. We think that this is because the movement of the user in the real world does not match with the movement that they see in the actual world. So their movement in the virtual world is just attached to the controllers, but their body moves in a different way that they see in the virtual world. So probably this is the reason that since there is not a match between these two motions, this led to a higher level of cyber sickness. And also, well, since they didn't move a lot, since our participants decided not to move a lot when they are playing the game, they have this, there is no significant difference between the physical and the non-physical versions of our games. Actually, interestingly, this non-physical version's physical activity enjoyment score is slightly higher. But, well, that is an issue that is due to the, it's not possible to say that our gameplay requires intense physical activity. If it required, maybe we could have different results. So, well, basically, we found out that these intense physical control schemes increase the sense of presence in terms of self-locations, possible actions, and involvement, in expense of usability, and also in expense of cyber sickness. Well, we think that these usability, playability related issues can be resolved since people get used to use these novel methods of controlling the virtual environments. And also there are studies that showing that if you engage with the virtual environments in a long period, you will the cyber sickness also tend to decrease. So as a result, we think that it's a good idea to provide some more physically active controls and more physically active gameplay methods in the virtual reality games. Oh, there is a cost for on usability and playability. There is a cost on cyber sickness maybe, but also there is this benefit of increasing the presence and involvement of the player. Well, based on our findings, it's not possible to say that the physical movement increases the sense of embodiment based on our results of our study. It's not possible. But we have this, we are inspired by our study that we can also explore this issue. We can explore the effect of the physical movement on embodiment using a similar method that we use in our study. So we think that, we also agree that the sense of embodiment is not due to only the visual representation of the user as an avatar in a virtual environment. We think that this visual representation of the motion in the virtual space, the visual representation of kinesthesia, also enhances the embodiment. And also, there is a mutual interaction between this visual representation of kinesthesia and the real world movements. So when we are moving in the real world, this proprioceptive information coming through your own body also enhances your feeling of being in the embodiment of your feeling the embodiment in the virtual environment. So in the future, we think that we are going to add an avatar on this dragon to represent the users. And then with this avatar representation version, the avatar represented version, we would be able to explore the effect of the proprioception on the embodiment in the virtual reality. Well, also our study can be criticized for ignoring the learning conditions, since we just let our users to play the game just for once. So probably in the future, when we are keeping on working on these issues, we will let our users to get some more experience in the different control mechanisms and different control schemes. And those repeated sessions would let us isolate the effects of the unfamiliar interaction models from the effect of physical activity, we think. So thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, I'm here.
Okay, thanks a lot for your presentation. Can you please press F4 on your keyboard to thank our speaker? Fine. So if you have any question, please feel free to ask your question in the chat or directly using the option to raise your hand. So I noticed a first question during the presentation. So what about the activity enjoyment questionnaire? Is it validated?
Well, I have seen some validation studies. Yes, it is. As far as I remember.
Fine.
There is some
Is there any other question?
Come again? Did you ask me?
So we have like 5 minutes before the next talk, so do not hesitate to ask any question, guys. I can see that someone is typing, so let's wait a few seconds. So do you evaluate the intensity of the exercise?
No, we didn't. That is the part that was missing in our study, actually. Actually, we couldn't provide an intense exercise, so we tried to use this PACES, physical activity enjoyment scale, to evaluate the intensity of the exercise, but we couldn't because there was no intense exercise. We expected the players to be more physically active when they were playing the handed version with this exercise device, but they were just trying to keep their balance only, just sitting there and engaging with the game instead of acting physically. That was the missing part. So maybe we should just think about another kind of gameplay that pushes the people to be more physically active during the gameplay.
Great, thanks for your answer. I can see that someone, okay. Which users should not be not engage in that activity? Age, cognition.
Well, in our opinion, based on our observations and also our own experience with that system, anybody can play that game. Anybody who can use VR can play that game because it's not very physically active. It's not physically active as much as we expected. So I cannot clearly answer your question based on our research findings.
Okay, and in the same vein, we have another question. Have you considered people in wheelchairs, people not able to operate two hands?
Well, we had another study for those people, but it's not our topic. I guess it's not about this study. Well, actually, we did not. We were just making a game for the majority of the population, and we are really sorry that we cannot provide the people with the wheelchairs experience with those two-handed gameplay version. But actually, they can still engage with our game since we have this joystick-controlled version. Some people with wheelchairs can play the version with the joystick without the swing mechanism and without the magic wand controllers.
Okay, and we have the last question for this paper. So do you think physic body will be essential to create better embodiment? And what do you think about hand tracking?
I didn't understand what you meant by physic body. You mean a
like
real
physical?
world body? A real world body? Yeah, I know. Physical body, you mean a real world body? Well, or an avatar of the user, a representation of the user.
Okay, so he is typing, so let's wait.
Okay, I'm waiting for you. Okay. So that based on our findings show that it's not necessary. Okay, without any representation, without any avatar representation in the virtual world, people had this feeling of presence and they had a good experience. But we will try to, in the future studies, we will try to find this out. Is there a really important positive effect of the physical representation, the avatar representation in the virtual world, in this feeling of present and having this sense of embodiment in the virtual world? At this point, it's not possible to say clearly that it's not necessary or it is really necessary. But based on our findings, we will explore it further. In my opinion, it's not very necessary. So there is this expense of programming an avatar, programming a good physical representation of the user's body in the virtual world. So we are trying to understand, does it worth it when we put there an avatar of the user? Does it affect does it affect the user experience a lot or not? But based on this study, we cannot tell that. So in the future work, we are planning to add an avatar and check this out.
Okay. May I provide you with some insights, as it is actually my research topic. So I would like to, thanks a lot. So I think there is two different parts. You know, the sense of presence can emerge even without a virtual representation of the body. But embodiment is divided into three dimensions, which are self-location, agency, and ownership. And the thing is, there is two main contributors to agency and etc., which are visual motor synchrony and visual tactile synchrony. And to experience the visual motor synchrony, you need a virtual body that moves with synchronous movements. So it means that to experience the sense of embodiment, I actually think it is better to have a virtual representation. But the sense of presence, which is a bit different, which concerns the feeling of being there in the environment, you do not need a virtual representation of your body. But of course, it's there is still a lot of discussion around this. So this is just my point of view, you know.
So maybe we should discuss about the concept of embodiment and its relationship with the concept of presence. Are they different? Are they matching parts? So still we are discussing about the nature of presence. Since the 90s, maybe since 80s, we are discussing about the nature of presence, and there should be some more discussion about the nature of embodiment also, so we can find out. And maybe at some point we need to merge these two concepts, presence and embodiment.
Yes, I agree. I mean, there is a lot of discussions and there is no consensus between all the definitions. So, of course, there is a lot of work to be done to answer all these questions. Okay, so I would like to thank our speaker and you guys for your questions. And let's move on to the next presentation. So the next presentation concerns risks and benefits of AI for humans. So it's a literature review. So the authors are not there this morning, but we have the presentation with the audio presentation. So Oliver, who's a co-chair of this session, will share the content of the presentation, but we won't be able to discuss with the authors right now. So please give us a few seconds just to share the presentation with you guys. And of course, you can contact directly the authors. So the authors are Roxane Souciel, Émilie LOUP-ESCANDE, Natacha Métayer, Émeric Parent, et Vanessa Laguette.
Yes. So as Emily could not answer your questions, she prepared a longer presentation that will fit around 30 minutes. And now I have to mute my mic to stream the sound. Cross a thing. Thing crossed, and I will try.
So no worries. I mean, Oliver is not gender fluid. It's just that he will have a female voice during the presentation, but it's actually the voice of Émilie LOUP-ESCANDE, who is the second author of the paper.
Good morning, all. My name is Émilie LOUP-ESCANDE, Assistant Professor in Ergonomics at the University of Picardie JULES VERNE. I propose you a review of the literature on the benefit and risk of AI for human. This literature review on benefits and risks of AI for human is at providing an overview of the disciplines and fields involved and describing the benefits and risk reported by the authors. To carry out this review, we used two databases, Info and Science Direct, in order to access an international view of research. Keywords where we used are artificial intelligence, benefits, advantage, reduce, positive effect, risk, improve, disadvantage, and psychology or human or person. We have focused on recent research between 2013 and 2018 due to the rapid advances and particularly abundant work in the field of artificial intelligence. Finally, we only consider scientific articles via the filter, review articles and research articles. In the end, we have listed 127 articles. After a reading of the abstracts of each of these papers by at least two authors of this communication, we excluded 73 papers as they did not provide any information, risks, and benefits of AI for humans. Instead, these papers dealt with AI in a technologic approach through disadvantage and disadvantage of algorithms or other mathematical models. Our final corpus is composed of 54 articles dealing explicitly with the benefits and or risk of AI for the human being from a social science perspective. Relatively to the first discipline, it appears that more than a third of the articles come from the fields of computer science. The next discipline most involved in AI is psychology. Next comes the medical science, grouping the disciplines of health, psychiatry, and genetics, and management and communication. This AI topic therefore appears to be a heavily invested research focus in computer science comparatively to other disciplines. Also, it is emerging in psychology. Moreover, we can notice that authors from the computer science community and those from the field of psychology have contributed to the AI thematic by publishing at least one article per year between 2013 and 2018. Regarding the nature of published articles, three categories have been identified. Review, including commentaries, theoretical discussions, literature reviews, methodological reviews, experimental studies and empirical studies, including case studies, computer simulations, use cases, etc. As shown in this figure, we can notice that currently works about AI are mainly review followed by experimental and empirical studies. An analysis of this application of studies on the benefits and or risk of AI to humans reveals that three main types of applications stand out. The first is the field of health or more specifically medicines, which related to almost a third of the selected studies. This is followed by works related to the role of AI in pedagogical topics. The third important field of application relates to AI's contributions to fundamental research in psychology and cognitive science. That means with the primary aim of a deeper understanding of human functioning. Analysis of the above-mentioned text shows several benefits of artificial intelligence, both for society in general and for the individual in particular. Several authors agree that AI, through its ability to understand what is moral, can bring a number of benefits to humanity. A third example is emotional AI, which could help a human to better deal with their emotions, thus having an impact on social behavior. Other researchers suggest that the natural or artificial brain with very high cognitive abilities would have tremendous implication for our society. Says AI could facilitate better decision, especially regarding policies, which could result in solving long-standing issues such as pollution or anger, etc. Other authors are convinced that AI could enable us to explore the world's peace beneath the oceans, or thus speed up scientific discovery. AI has definite benefits for physical health and mental health. In practical terms, AI would allow the optimization of prevention, more reliable diagnosis, and more appropriate treatment that AI could acquire over time and over situation encountered, thus reducing fatality risk. It would also be a tool for ERs that would promote patients' understanding and involvement in their own health, while improving the efficiency of care system, reducing the demand of healthcare personnel and cost, and even improving communication between patients and medical personnel. Some also believe that AI will eventually be able to accurately predict the course of a pathology. Finally, AI could improve the living environment of people with special needs by making it safer and more helpful. Examples research has demonstrate that interaction with an artificial pet could improve the social behavior of Alzheimer patients, bring spiritual comfort to older adults, and or could help a child diagnosed with autism. Furthermore, literature identifies a number of benefits of AI in the area of education at a macroscopic level. Educational institutions could use AI to effectively determine the application of learning ways for given learners. Some authors go so far as to suggest that AI could improve the educational system by filling the shortage of qualified teachers. At a more microscopic level, many studies have shown these benefits of using robots in the teaching of science disciplines like mathematics. engineering, or technology, based on socio-constructivist theories and modern pedagogical theories based on active pedagogy, of the improvement of students' cognitive abilities. Another use of AI in education would be to evaluate students, avoiding human error in grading. Among other things, by conferring on non-playing character behavior approaching that of human being, AI sustains the interest of video game. It also offers significant advantages in text editing, support by taking over tasks potentially less interesting for an author, such as spell checking or the use of deep learning for machine translation, such as the service DeepL, for example. In spite of the benefits reported in the analysis of the articles mentioned above, fears, drawback, or risk are also questions. Also, for some authors, AI encounters many limitations in terms of its capabilities and acceptability. For others, it raises ethical questions, particularly in its role of the future of humanity. Many authors agree that AI is still limited and far from the human model. For some, human beings can indeed design many more strategies to communicate with AI, which remains limited in its learning. Also, AI-specific models can help in the understanding of human mechanisms, such as memory mechanisms. These models may be overestimated, partly due to a lack of explanatory power. Therefore, AI cannot simulate complex behavior and must thus be controlled by an actual person. Human emotions are too little considered in this human-machine interaction. For example, the field of education lacks results regarding the emotions mobilized in learning, especially in the way to measure the impact of the emotional context on learners. Emotions are natural and arguably critical part of learning. Therefore, the study of the affect related to learning pose many challenges, especially if the is to promote an AI capable of identifying and dealing with students' emotions in real time. Many authors point to the limitation associated with user acceptance. Indeed, in the arts field, among others, theories and models are light resistance to changing behavior. To do so, it is necessary to understand and consider the desires, expectations, and belief of patients that will shape their behavior and thus explain their resistance. So, to gain the benefits of AI, patients require a significant level of knowledge and skill in the use of information. Therefore, it is necessary to consider the notion of arts literacy, that is, understanding the motivational skills of an individual to access, understand, and use information to reach decision about his or her own arts. Finally, It is also pointed out that if the communication system is not designed in a participatory approach, interaction with the patient may fail regardless of the AI's performance. The concepts of risk related to AI also raise questions of ethical nature, especially around two major questions: data protection and accountability. Some authors express concerns regarding user data, online data access, data ownership. Currently, a lot of data is being collected by businesses for specific use, leading to improved profits with little or no motivation for data sharing. As for accountability, the examples of the autonomous car or when Pori are particularly relevant. Automatic driving appears to undermine the exercise and allocation of responsibility in several ways. For some authors, this includes the replacement of human intervention by machine intervention, but also the evolution of the user's epistemic relationship with the environment, which can be described in terms of human disengagement. Regarding Pori, the notion of responsibility is highlighted in the context of autonomous weapons. These autonomous weapons called violate fundamental principles of human dignity by enabling machines to choose who to kill and could also be used by clandestine activists. Finally, this concept of risk points to the role of AI in its relationship to human, and especially to the future of humanity for a large number of authors. Handed regarding the role of AI, first risk involves relationship and communication between humans themselves. If when it will be increasingly difficult to know whether one is interacting with a human or with an AI in the case of remote communication, for example. According to the authors, obstacles still need to be overcome to enable robots or humans to coexist in a safe and productive way, especially when it comes to communicating with and understanding each other. As well, in the idea of loss of control, authors point to the replacement of humans by machines in various fields, such as manual labor or intellectual tasks. But it also seems that this loss of control would be psychological in nature, in the human ability to control their destiny on Earth by posing an existential threat to humanity. Finally, apocalyptic end of the world scenarios when humans will be controlled by AI question many scientists. Risk would include total human extinction as a result of super intelligent and unfriendly AI, which could be mitigated but not avoided by integrating ethical principles into AI systems. For some, AI could destroy what defines humanity. This literature review is intended to highlight the dynamics of publication related to the risk and benefits of AI to humans. The objective is twofold. On the one hand, to provide an overview of discipline and fields involved with this issue, and to the other hand, to describe more accurately the benefits and the risks as reported by the authors. Regarding the first objective, this human-centered literature review on the benefits and risk of AI has shown an existent but rather minor involvement of psychology on these topics. Actually, only 13% of the selected articles explicitly dealt with research in psychology, although work on AI in psychology is not limited to the articles surveyed here. The findings support, if not more extensive investments of the field by psychology. At least willingness increase the visibility of works that would be undertaken but not promoted on AI in psychology. Regarding the second point relative to the content of the selected articles, findings show that the benefits and risks associated with AI address each other directly. Thus, based on the same reading of the implementation modalities of AI, some authors will notice benefits while others with risk incurred. For example, Muller considered that AI as an opportunity to better understand what is moral, while Kuckelberg emphasizes the risk of a decline in humanity morality by withdrawing from their responsibilities in favor of AI. In addition, several authors outlined the benefits of having AI perform some tasks, while others point to the risk involved in replacing humans. Parallels between the benefits and risk of AI suggests that the questioning on these issues is still young, and that scientific consensus on the positive and negative aspects of AI for human has not yet been established. This finding point to 4 research prospects. Firstly, from an initial methodological approach, we have observed that the paper questioning AI in terms of benefits and risks are mainly treated from a methodological and theoretical perspective. Fourth, it will be important to initiate empirical and or experimental research to better understand the mechanism and processes related to the benefits and risk of AI. Second, research approach opened by this literature review belongs to the disciplinary scope of the ergonomic psychology, aiming to yield knowledge about human activity in natural situations in several areas: work, training, daily life. As an entry of the risk and benefits of AI to human, this article is a starting point and should encourage self-questioning prior to the involvement, roles, and contribution of psychology and ergonomics researchers who are being increasingly solicited to collaborate in AI research projects such as autonomous vehicles, smart grid, EOS, adaptive learning system, or Industry 4.0. A third research approach related to this literature review, which would fall rather within the field of social psychological focus on integrating the world of the social, cultural, and emotional content in AI studies. This is because risk and benefits perspectives are often processes associated with the social perception of affected individuals by the text in which they are embedded, imprinted with social norms, value, and codes. Final approach inherently linked to these notions of risk and benefits to human is explicitly related to the acceptability of EI. This acceptability issue is all the more interesting in that it could be worth dealing with through at least two complementary scientific assessment promoting a cost-referenced view, resulting in particularly rich data, practical acceptability and social acceptability. From the practical acceptability perspective, the objective will be to improve the ergonomic quality of AI and optimize interaction between it and its user in order to facilitate its adoption and thus ensure optimal compatibility between the user, its task, and the emerging technology. In the second sense, and with the objective of optimizing this interaction, it will be about understanding how the social perceptions of individuals in connection with AI and its characteristic constructed with regard to notably social context, promote or discourage the use of technologies. These perceptions and social representations should necessarily be linked to the level of expertise of user and their expectation of AI. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, so as I told you, oh wait, few seconds. Oliver. Yeah, okay. Is it okay with your mic? Now we have the loop, so if you can just.
It's okay.
Yep, fine, thanks. So as I told you,
voice now.
Fine. So as I told you, it was a recorded presentation. So let's thank Oliver and the authors. So if you can press F4 on your keyboard, pretty sure they will appreciate. So let's move on. So if you have any question, please feel free to contact the authors of the paper. Let me remind you that you can access the papers and the proceedings on the igvr.eu website. And then we can move on to the next and the final presentation of this session entitled Visualizing Vibrotactile Feedback in VR. So presentation by Martin KRAUS. So yeah, you can access the screen and put your presentation, share your presentation here. And let me know if you experience any issue.
Thank you. Let's try this.
Okay, so do you guys see the presentation? Yes, yes, you can press F4 if you see the presentation. Yeah, so it seems okay, it should be okay. So
put it into the chat. So.
Yep, if you're ready, you can present your paper, and thanks a lot for coming and sharing your work here.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here. I've been in Laval before. This is very different. Let me just check whether I appear in the live stream because I.
Yeah, sure. Take your time. It should be okay.
Because I was in the. Oh, that's. The live stream is behind or something. Or maybe I'm not. Ah, yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Sorry. Welcome. I'm Martin KRAUS. I'm presenting. I'm an associate professor at Aalborg University. I'm presenting work here by 3 students, André, Leon, Mohamed, and they did an experimental study on the effect of the effect of visualizing vibrotactile feedback on immersion. Now I have to do my actual slides to make sense of this. So vibrotactile feedback, some background information about vibrotactile feedback. It has been around for a long time commercially. It was introduced in a large scale by the Nintendo 4 attachment called Rumble Pack to the controller. And since then, it has been very successful for all kinds of game controllers, including virtual reality controllers like the HTC Vive controller here. So that's because it increases immersion, and so it's commercially successful. But there are also other systems like this gaming chair that you can buy now, which has these 10 vibrotactile zones that can vibrate, controlled by a game. It has been shown in different studies that you can increase immersion into a game with these kind of techniques. But one thing that came up in these studies is that you have to synchronize the vibrotactile feedback with visual and auditory stimuli. If you don't synchronize it, if it's off by like a second or so, it actually has a chance of breaking your immersion because you feel that something is wrong with it. So given that information, we started being interested in what can we do if there is no visual representation that we can synchronize with, right? So we know if there is visual representation, then synchronizing is important to increase immersion. But what if there's no visual representation of the feedback? And the situation we looked at was sitting in an airplane, feeling the machine engine vibration, feeling the turbulences while you fly. All this, you can create this with a gaming chair that vibrates, but there's not necessarily a visual representation of those effects. So the question then is, can we improve immersion by introducing a visual representation of that vibration? So our experimental setup was, we had this two 50-watt subwoofers in a wooden plate here, which is, and the subwoofers are controlled through an amplifier, and then the amplifier gets its audio signal from a PC, which runs a Unity application that also runs the HTC Vive headset here. And then the vibration gets into the wooden plate here, and then through this wooden chair to the seat. So that was the hardware setup. The software setup was a VR experience developed with Unity and the Steam VR plugin. And it consisted of a passenger cabin plane with 3 objects: the smartphone, this plate here, and a can. The rest is static, but these can potentially move. And the auditory stimuli include machine noise and announcements by a flight attendant. So basically saying that you have to buckle up and that there might be some turbulences starting or something. The experience was relatively short, just about a minute. And then we had 4 conditions. Someone has this issue with sound. Is okay? Can you hear me? So yeah, the 4 conditions, we call them NVR, no visual representation. And I should say that all 4 conditions had the same vibrotactile feedback in them. The difference was only in the visual representation of the feedback. Yeah. So the first here is NVR, no visual representation. So everything is just static, and you feel the vibration. Then object shake is that these objects here start shaking depending on the intensity of the vibrotactile feedback. Like they would, you might start shaking when you are in a plane. In some cases, they actually dropped off the tablet here, and that was due to the physics engine. So there's some randomness in how that worked. Yeah. So that was the second condition, and then we had a condition screen shake, which was moderated by what traditional flat screen games do for loud sounds or explosions, that they start shaking the screen. And we just wanted to see whether we could use that also in VR. And it was a relatively small screen shake, so we were a bit concerned that this would create cyber sickness. So but we did a test, and for the kind of screen shake that we used, no one complained about any kind of cyber sickness. And then we assumed that by combining the object shake and the screen shake, we would, in this last condition, we would get even more immersion. So those were the 4 conditions. Again, all of them had the same Vibrotactile feedback in them. And the participants each participant went through all 4 of them in randomized order. I think that's actually on the next slide. We had 20 participants. That was before the lockdown, so we actually could test with people. And then after each condition, each participant answered 10 questions on a 7-point Likert scale, where the scale was from not at all to completely, where they could go back to their previous answers and change them for the different conditions. So in order to make sure that they can, if they feel small changes, they can still report them. And the questions were taken from published immersion and presence questionnaires, so something like how completely were all your senses engaged, how much did the visual aspects of the environment involve you, and so on. We did not take all questions from these immersion questionnaires because many of them were not related to our test, right? So the test was only about the visual effect, or the effect of the visual representation. And many of these immersion questionnaires include things about auditory senses and so on. And we did not anticipate a large effect on those questions. So we chose questions that we assumed had a chance that we get some difference for these conditions. And you can read all of them in the paper. So we made a list of differences that we expected in the answers between specific conditions. So one of them is from the paper, the introducing visual representation of the Vibrotactile feedback in the form of the object shake, screen shake, and combined shake increases the feeling of sensory engagement. So that relates directly to this question, how completely were all your senses engaged? And then we would compare the answers between the no visual representation condition and each of those, and we expected in each comparison to find a significant or a difference. So this is actually 3 hypotheses because it includes 3 comparisons. And then we think of these hypotheses as independent experiments. So that is to say, we did not perform a multiple comparisons correction for these hypotheses because we had clear expectations for what we expected to see. We had other hypotheses where we were not clear about what our expectations were, and then we did a multiple comparisons correction, Confirmation correction. But we, with or without, in those cases where we didn't expect a difference, we actually didn't observe a significant difference. So there are different ways of summarizing the results. You see all the results in the paper. One way of looking at or summarizing the results would be to look at the conditions of these 3 conditions with visual representation compared to the non-visual representation, and then looking which of these comparisons would, for the different questions, would give a significant difference. So for the object shape versus no visual representation in 8 of these comparisons for 8 questions, more or less, we expected a significant difference, and we observed a significant difference in 6 out of 8, which is pretty good, I think. For screen shake, we found only 1 of 8 comparisons to be significant, which is a lot less than we would expect, and basically meant that it didn't work. It didn't really increase immersion significantly. And then for the combined shake, and that's quite interesting, we only found it in significant difference in 2 out of 9 comparisons. So it's actually less than object shake, even though this combined shake includes object shake. So I think that's some interesting result. It might be due to problems in the experiment, which I come back to. But it's interesting that including screen shake, it actually much improves the results for the combined shake.
Répète.
Ouais, tu m'entends?
Ouais, mais je pense
What is
qu'on dérange
talking,
pas.
but I guess I can.
Please, guys, mute your mic because we can hear you.
Yes, but I'm almost done. So conclusions and future work. There were some shortcomings of the experiment. So one problem was that some participants did not see the objects, so they would look out of the window, and then while the objects were shaking, they didn't see them. And that's of course a problem, but it kind of works against the object shake condition. So we are not too worried about this problem, because if that wouldn't exist, we would only see even better results for the object shake conditions. Then the one main thing here is that screen shake did not work very well, and it even appeared to reduce immersion by object shake when combined with in the combined shake condition. And I need to qualify this. So other forms of screen shake might work better. So we just designed it, tested it, but we did not did tests with different forms of screen shake. So that might be a challenge for other people in future work to test other forms of screen shake and see whether they would work in VR. We also did not test whether screen shake, what the effect of screen shake is without vibrotactile feedback. So it might be better without vibrotactile feedback. It simply didn't test, or screen shake versus screen shake with vibrotactile, or no screen shake without vibrotactile feedback might have a better effect. Yeah, so that could also be tested to work. So object shake did definitely increase immersion. Maybe that's not too surprising, but it is something to keep in mind, and it's one form of visualization of vibrotactile feedback that might make sense and could increase immersion and could be considered in more experiences. That's also the general conclusion. One thing that we did not test was cartoonish visualizations of vibrotactile feedback. So I'm thinking specifically of sometimes you use the vibration of controllers to guide the attention of people to the controllers. If you want to show something on the controllers, many experiences, for example, Google Earth VR, vibrate the controllers, and then users would instinctively look at the controller if they don't understand why the controller vibrates. So that's a way of guiding the attention of people to the controllers. And then in that case, having a cartoonish visualization, like some lines around the controllers to indicate that it's vibrating, might actually help. We did not test it, but that might be another form of visualization that might be interesting to look at. Yes, that was my presentation. Thank you for attention, and I'm happy to take questions now or after. Contact me. This is my email at Aalborg University.
Well, Martin, thanks a lot for your presentation. Please, we can thank our speaker. Press F4 on your keyboard. So if you have any question, please feel free to ask your question in the chat or directly using the raise hand button. So, okay, there is a first question. Was there any sound connected to the shaking?
There was no sound directly connected to the shaking, but there was sound related to the vibrotactile feedback. So the vibrotactile feedback itself you could hear because the subwoofers are, they vibrate the wooden box and then the chair, so it's actually somewhat loud. But then we also had the representation of the machine noise and the turbulence. So there was audio synchronized with the shaking, but there was no sound from the objects as they shake. But there was kind of additional sound that was synchronized with it. So it's a complicated answer, I guess, but that's how the system works.
Great, thanks. So we have another question. Why did the screen shake did not work well, and how could you improve it?
So I guess I was concerned that it would increase motion sickness, cyber sickness. So I kind of urged the students to keep the shake quite low in order not to have any of these problems. Oh, hi, Leon. So and it didn't increase cyber sickness, but an effect might be that it was not strong enough. So that could have been a reason why it did not work. So we don't know, basically. But so I think that would be something that could be tested.
Fine. So we have another question. Would you recommend to include screen shake in VR application or not at all?
I guess it would depend very much how you do it. So from literature, you shouldn't do, like shake the horizon. So like tilting the horizon is probably a bad idea. Yeah, I think like there could be. I think you should definitely test it, and there could be an effect. So I wouldn't rule it out.
And we have another question. I think it's in line with the previous one, but did you try something like a world shake, so more like an earthquake, or only a screen shake?
That's a good question. We did not try a world shake. If you have a static world, then the world shake would be visually equivalent to a screen shake, I assume. And from a physics point, if you have these moving objects, then the combined shake might be very similar to a world shake. So I'm not sure whether it would be visually much different from what we tested, but we did not try.
Okay, so next question. How did you synchronize the visual and the vibrotactile events?
Yeah, so if I just go back to the slide, if I can do this. So we had the setup, we had the subwoofers connected to a amplifier, and the amplifier was connected to a PC, and the PC was running the Unity application, and then so the technical details. It was somewhat complicated because you can only output one audio signal from a Unity application apparently. So the students actually had a second process that was synchronized to give the same of the sounds at the right time from the application, but it basically was controlled by the PC. Everything was controlled by one PC.
Yeah, let's move on to the next question. So have you checked some associations made by the participants between their screen shake and the action taken?
Some associations made by the participants between the screen shake. I'm not sure I understand the question. So the participants didn't do much in so they just observed, right? So and there didn't happen much in the screen shake.
Okay, so we have new information concerning the question. Maybe you can read the last.
I mean, by association, the understanding of the perception and what they were doing. I don't think we had many of the, so I didn't conduct the experiment. I don't think we had any observations from that specifically. We did an initial test to ask participants whether they have motion signals from the screen shake, and we didn't get much out of that. But I don't think we asked any further what the associations would be. But that would be interesting to look into, definitely.
Okay, okay, fine. So we have another question. What about smart gloves with vibration feedbacks? Have you tried it?
We haven't tried it. For this particular scenario, it was more interesting to have the chair, the vibrating chair. In other scenarios, you could use the vibration of the controllers or of smart gloves. So that could also be interesting to look at, definitely.
Okay, and we have another question. Do you think that hand tracking from the Oculus Quest could reduce immersion because there wouldn't be vibrotactile feedback?
Oh, that's a complex question. Like immersion is a complex concept. So I guess what people, and I haven't designed anything, and we haven't done much testing or any kind of formal testing with the hand tracking in the Oculus Quest. I guess what people realized already is that they saw that it's difficult to kind of touch buttons, for example, because you're touching air doesn't feel as good as touching a virtual button and getting vibrotactile feedback from the touch. So I guess what works often is kind of touch your own fingers, right? That's the pinch gesture in with the Oculus Quest, how you select things, right? So that's the reason why that works well is because you touch your own finger, right? So you get kind of a tactile feedback from that. And then the other gestures that seem to work well is kind of pointing, like this force gesture. You point with your hand at something instead of grabbing it. And so I think these are the two main things that people came up with now: touching your own fingers or hands and kind of pointing and do this kind of force field gesture. So I think it's a question of designing, right? So you have to kind of design around the lack of vibrotactile feedback.
Fine. Do you guys have any other question? I can see that someone is typing. Okay, it's a thanks. So great. Let's thank our speaker again and all of you guys for your questions. So it's the end of this session. We've been very pleased with Oliver to welcome you here for the session Human-Centered Experiences. Let me remind you the fourth session will be at 3:20. It will be about AR and VR concepts, so more artistic part of the conference. Well, that's all for this session. Thanks a lot, and see you around in the virtual environment. I hope you'll have a great time here, and yep, see you soon.
Thanks.
Hi, Leon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Have you seen any other talks? Oh, hi, Mohan. Oh, and the bass too. Can't hear you. Wait, why? Like, I see you talking, but I can't hear you. Why is that?
Find some mic settings in it. I don't know.